The H100 is the Nvidia chip that is driving the world wild right now. The reason that you've seen Nvidia's revenue over the last couple years just balloon like a harpoon with a spoon in June is because
You're
of
about
the
to get
H100.
put on probation.
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Doogles, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
Brodus, 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 Brodus.
More Calvin, huh?
More Calvin. 500K a day?
I don't think that's true. There's a rumor, sure.
Sounds good. I get happy for the boy. You know what I mean? Because I'm sitting here, I'm watching the Olympics, and I'm like, he's just having a good time. He's just there because he got a ticket to Paris, goes have a good time, do a little advertising on The Voice, check, 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 check. But when you talk about 500K a day, now I understand why he's so into diving, why he's so into handball.
Okay, let's, for a second, for those who don't know, we are talking about the rumored Snoop Dogg compensation figures for his coverage of the Olympics. And coverage might be pushing it because he basically goes around and has fun. Let's assume the 500K a day is accurate, roughly $9 million for 18 days. Yep. I think that's 16 days of competition versus a day or two on the end or something, right? Assume that Snoop Dogg got $9 million to cover the Olympics. It makes me want to turn off the TV, man. Not because of Snoop Dogg. Good for him. Yeah. But like, do you know how much NBC paid for that? And then if you're paying your commentators like that, it's a slap in the face for us. It's why I have to watch so many of those pharmaceutical commercials that I complained about a couple of weeks back.
That would be more than the president makes in a year, in a day.
Completely. I mean, I'm all for free markets here. Like, I don't care about that. But are you tuning in to the Olympics for Snoop Dogg?
I didn't know what the Olympics were until I heard Snoop Dogg was going to be there. I thought I was going to be watching a weight loss drug thing. I was like, it's the you get it? Because the Ozempic too soon?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
too soon.
Just wait till we get to talk about Pitbull, which is coming up on later in the show. It's almost as good. Now, we have listener mail coming up, but I want to talk what everyone wants to talk about, which is Warren Buffett, Apple, and what he's doing with his Benjamins.
So if folks do not know, Warren Buffett took a big bite out of the apple a few years hence. What was it, 2015? I think they started buying Apple, something like that, 2015-ish, something like that. Maybe a little after, 2016. Took a big bite out of that apple to the point where Apple was 40+% of Berkshire Hathaway's portfolio about 9 months ago.
It went north of 50 at one point. I think it was 51%. Yeah.
North of 50. About 9 months ago, our very own Skippy Doodah, he proclaimed, Warren, you got to trim that. Player, you got to trim that.
That's at our sit down with him in Omaha. I'm joking for those who don't know. That's what I told him. I said, listen, my man, sell a little bit of this.
And so Warren took that to heart and has sold half of Berkshire Hathaway's Apple stock this year. So what does that do? And why are we chitty-chatting about it? It's not about Apple. It's not about Tim Cook. It's not about Apple at all. This is about the cash that Berkshire Hathaway now has on hand.
Hold on. Pump the brakes a little. Agreed. That's probably the main intent. The people that are completely up in arms don't realize that he bought it at, it was roughly, these numbers are from memory, but like price to earnings of 12 and then price to earnings of around 30. For those who don't know, when you talk about price increases, you typically break it down into two factors. One are like fundamental growth, meaning your earnings actually go up. And another is multiple expansion, meaning what people are willing to pay for those earnings increased. In this case, a lot of the gains are related to multiple expansion, which just means people 10 years ago were like, Apple's not any, it's not an exciting company to own. And today the sentiment is it's like 3 times more expensive. So it makes sense. That's been my take on why he needed to sell it more than to add to his cash pile. It's just like it's not the same investment that it was when he bought it.
Agreed. So what I'm saying is what we're talking about is the cash pile,
Okay,
not Apple.
fair.
But I hear
Sorry.
you. I mean, so everything that you just said, and not including dividends, the stock is up something like 8 to 10x for him. I don't know exactly when they bought,
Yeah.
but it's wild, wild number. So trim that apple. That creates a lot of cash. So I had a little fun. You want to dive into a little bit of fun?
Yeah, I can't wait.
Okay. Oh, that was the most enthusiastic I've ever heard anyone be. So here's what I was thinking. So this cash pile has now grown to $277 billion. I'm gonna repeat that. $277 billion is the amount of cash and cash equivalents that Berkshire Hathaway has. So the fun I had was, let's say that there is a full market, what do we want to call it? Crash, some version of that. So something the way where the market goes down materially, 30-40% drop. And Berkshire's sitting on $277 billion. What, pray tell, could Berkshire do with that money? Looking at public market equities. This is the fun I decided to have.
Again, a little context. So are you thinking US stocks here? Did you open
US
it up
stocks.
broader? Okay. Buffett's obviously had incredible performance and probably will continue to. But one of the limitations today is he's just so big. Berkshire is so large that the material purchases he can buy, he can't buy your mom and pop $100 million business because it doesn't change his returns in any way, shape, or form. It's just too small for him. So, Doogles, what you did here is you kind of looked at you're a matchmaking service, right? You're trying to find companies that, if there's a little bit of a pullback, might get Buffett interested and might still make a material difference in his performance. Is that right?
Yep. That is right. That is right.
Okay.
So you got to be talking about big old organizations. And what was fun for me here was, one, I don't think about market cap very often outside of the stuff that's in the news. So that the stuff that's in the news, what I mean is we see Apple and Nvidia and Meta and Amazon, and we're seeing that they're $1 trillion, $2 trillion. So that's like where the market cap's thrown out. But generally, going back to what you talked about before, looking at multiples, looking at changes, and not necessarily the market cap of companies. But Berkshire, because of everything you just stated, market cap matters. Like the total size of the organization matters because you need enough to change your portfolio. So here's what I did. So they have $277 billion. My assumption was they're not going to take that cash pile to zero. So I just said, what if the cash, you're going to leave $50 billion in cash? There's probably some amount that they have to hold because of insurance holdings and whatnot. So like, I'm just going to say,
okay. I mean, I'd put
let's just go with it. Let's just go with it.
If he's buying something,
let's just go with it. It's still fun. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
So let's say they're keeping 50 billion. So what we're playing with is $227 billion, still a lot of money. So then I took two scenarios. One scenario is saying, what if Berkshire just bought a material amount of a few companies? So I used material amount as like 10% plus of the organization. So it's well beyond the amount where they'd have to disclose, which is 5%, but like a material amount. The other scenario is just buying companies outright. So those are the two scenarios I looked at because it changes the market cap size of what those companies could be. You ready for it?
Yeah.
Okay. So if Berkshire's going to buy companies outright, I looked at organizations where if their market cap dropped 30 to 40%, you're sitting somewhere in like the 60 to 75 billion range, so that Berkshire could make a couple purchases in there.
Okay.
So what that currently means is where the market cap is now is somewhere like the 50 to 90 billion range, because if they dropped, they would then be in that range. So here are some orgs that popped up. You want to make a guess as to the types of companies that are in that size that Berkshire
like
also
50
might be?
billion? No, I mean, again,
it's hard to, you
I
probably
don't
don't know.
really look at market cap
Yeah.
unless it's like part of my criteria to make
Yeah.
sure it's big enough company. So no.
Makes sense. So we'll just skip it. Here's some of the names that pop up. So these are companies in like in the 50, 60 to 90 billion. So it's a broad range, but I tried to say, if I squinted, I think Berkshire might be interested in a company like this, and it's in that range. Starbucks, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Chipotle, so like let's put that in the food and bevies.
I
Uh,
can't imagine him owning Chipotle.
I know, but it's like he's
He
also
could,
got
yeah.
it's not just Buffett anymore. So, all right, then let's go into hospitality for a second. You've got Marriott and Hilton, whose market caps are currently in the 50 to 60 billion dollar range, or an Airbnb, which is at like 75.
Oh gosh, in that Airbnb is an interesting one. We were texting about that this week.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I can't imagine Buffett by he feels like more of a Hilton guy than
Well,
a
that's yeah.
Airbnb guy.
That's why I was like Marriott Hilton makes more sense, but then you have this Airbnb. Like it's
Yep.
kind of interesting,
Yep.
the hospitality. All right. Then 3M,
I
70
could see
billion.
that. I think I
70
told him to
billion.
buy 3M 2 years ago. I honestly think I told him.
Yeah. It's interesting. This one, I didn't realize the market cap of this organization was this low. I mean, these are big companies still, but Target, $60 billion.
So basically, he should buy Minnesota. Well, 3M and Target, like up in here.
Yeah, actually, what is the GDP of Minnesota?
If you get those,
$472 billion is the GDP of Minnesota. So like, I mean, maybe just take the state.
no, if you get those two, I think you're doing pretty well at
Yep.
establishing a footprint.
So it's
Ooh.
interesting. There are lots of other companies that are in that range, but those are ones I pulled out when I was taking a look. So interesting. That's buying it outright. Now, if you go into assuming, let's say 10% plus of companies, it starts to increase the market caps that we're looking at here. So still going for that, let's say there's 30-40% drop. We can look at companies that range from 100 bill to $500 billion. Because if you're thinking about he's picking up 5 of them, he can spend 45, 50 bill on each of these organizations if you're buying about 10%.
Okay.
So here's what we're playing with. At the top, the highest market kizzies. Visa, MasterCard are roughly in that 400, $500 billion range. So picking up 10%-ish of those. Interesting. This would be an homage. The second one, an homage. Can you guess what it would be? An homage.
No.
If I say it again, will it help? Homage.
Definitely not.
Costco.
Hey, he's not buying 10%
I'm just
of
saying,
Costco.
it's
He's
an
not, no.
homage. It's an homage. We say that. Well, I can't even say we because you just said no. I put it in there because it popped up and I was like, oh, Charlie Munger loved Costco. So that's why I threw it in there as an homage. Okay. Home Depot is a $350 billion, $350 billion market cap. McDonald's.
Yeah. Did you know McDonald's earlier this year? I think they've pulled back. They were at a price to sales of like 9.
Ooh.
McDonald's is too expensive for him at the moment, I believe. But you're talking about a 40% pullback. So maybe.
Yeah. So McDonald's right now is about a $200 billion market cap. If it pulled back 30-40%, it would get into that 120, $140 billion range. If you were to buy 10+%, that's let's call it a $15-20 billion investment for 15% of McDonald's. Interesting.
Kind of nothing when you almost have 300 billion in cash.
Seriously. He could just like, he poots out like enough to buy 15% of McDonald's. Disney, $150 billion market cap right now. If it pulled back it's already pulled back a lot. So I don't know if 30-40% is realistic, but if it pulled back another 30-40%, you're talking about a $90 to $100 billion market cap. He could buy a third of Disney.
This is good. You did good work on this. Yeah. I'm impressed. I'm shocked actually, Doogles.
Can I throw?
This is amazing.
I got two more. One you'll love. This would make you Eskimo brothers with our good friend Warren Buffett. This next one, Nike. Nike's at $115 billion market cap. If
would not surprise me in the least. He should buy the whole thing.
Billion. He could buy the whole thing. Like that could be an outright purchase.
Yeah, are you trying to get me on the tangent about the fact that we didn't know Berkshire Hathaway has a Lululemon competitor when we were in Omaha walking the market? I didn't know he owns a direct competitor to Nike already. Yeah, and he owns Brooks shoes too. So
he does. So maybe not.
Okay. Sorry, last company, and then I have thoughts.
Yeah, this last one, for similar reasons, because of competitor, probably couldn't happen either, but it's a phenomenal organization in the insurance space, and it's Progressive. $130 billion market cap. If it dropped, you're talking 80 to 90. I don't think you would, but it would be a phenomenal buy.
You're biased on that one. I don't share your same
Very
rosy
biased.
picture
Very
of
biased.
Progressive.
Very biased. Have you not seen those commercials? Do you not know Flo?
Oh, I know Flo.
Okay.
This is fascinating. He's going to pick up 3 of those names. And I think if I had to guess, some reason Starbucks is kind of interesting for me. Disney is super interesting. And 3M is super interesting. And then Target too.
Yeah, those probably stand out to me as well.
And the Disney one is almost, none of it's a no-brainer. So here's what he's gonna do, right? He's not on a podcast throwing some money around because he's bored. He's gonna wait for ish, as you would say, to blow up. And then he's gonna deploy capital in the way that, is the most shooting fish in a barrel exercise he can find. But those names, he really likes the strong brand, and he's an older gentleman, right? So he's more nostalgic about like a Disney than maybe someone like Bill Eggman would be, or someone else.
And
I think, yeah, go.
And I don't know what his full knowledge is here, but he was very close to Tom Murphy, who was the CEO of Capital Cities ABC back until the 90s, and then joined the Berkshire Hathaway board, I believe. This is from memory, so I think this is all true. And so I don't know how much he actually got to be nostalgic about media and the power of media because of the closeness of their relationship. I don't know. I'm completely speculating on that, but it's a thought.
Well, another thing that got crushed this week, didn't make your list, but I'm sure it could, is Warner Brothers Discovery. They did like a $10 billion write down of their cable channels.
Yep.
Which is like HGTV, TNT, CNN, etc. And if he wanted to make a legacy media play that wasn't Disney,
yeah, could be that.
That could happen too.
Could be that.
This is fun. So I want to build on this. I want to wrap this next segment. We're gonna call it listener mail because I got enough inquiries along these same lines. So you want to hit that jingle, Doogles?
Let's do it.
They fight and fight and fight and fight and fight. Fight, 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 fight. The Skippy and Doogles show.
Two-parter here. First is what happened to the market on Monday, and second is it was almost like, what the hell is happening to the market on Monday? Are we allowed to say that? And then
probably
second is
got said.
What the hell is happening to the vice president, the potential vice president's finances? And this is a story I never thought we'd talk about on the show, but it's fascinating. So
from Brodus to POTUS.
This is why we can build off Buffett, because when I'm getting inquiries about what's happening on Monday, I'm going, do you see how much gray hair I have over here? Like, nothing's happening on Monday. This is what the stock market does. This does not bother me at all. I'm rooting for the thing to go down more. And long story short, but the stock, the S&P 500 went down almost 3% on Monday, but went up 2.3% on Thursday, went up almost 1% on Tuesday. It comes out in the wash at the end of the day. So really, it's interesting the more time you spend in the market. You and I are 20 plus years in, how this just bothers you less. That's the only thing I can really say about it. And I don't know that that's smart, but it does not bother me at all.
It bothers me, but for different reasons than it bothers other folks. So this is the time in the market that I call super annoying, because it's like when the market drops, and it drops in, to your point, an uninteresting amount for my particular situation. However, when it drops, I want it to drop so there's like obvious stuff for me to pick up, and it's not fully there. There are potential buys that exist out there, but not like the obvious stuff. And so it's that annoying amount of drop. That's why it bothers me, but not because it's dropping. I'm like, if you're going to drop. Like, I want you to drop top with a crop top.
All right, let's move on from your rapping here. if people were speculating, we don't really do this on the show because I hate this sort of stuff, but when the market drops by 2+%, what always happens is people speculate as to why. Let me break it to you. Most of the time, no one has any clue, but the Wall Street Journal has to write an article to sell papers, and so does every other financial journalist and every other financial podcast. So the speculation this week is that the drop on Monday, I mean, it kind of started in Japan, and the speculation relates to this thing called the yen carry trade. I don't want to spend too much time on it, Doogles. If you want to, it's fine. Basically, this relates to idiots. Sorry, let me be nicer. People saying, oh, hey, there's low interest rates in Japan. So what I'm going to do is I'll borrow a bunch of yen, and then I'll convert that to dollars. And then like, I'll just either sit on money markets or invest in dollars. And what's going to happen is the yen is going to continue to depreciate, and whatever my investment in dollars is going to go up in value. I'll pay off the loan 5 years later, using a stupid example here, and I'll make all sorts of free money. Well, what happens when people take out debt and do idiotic things? They lose their shirt.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's the heart of it. There appears to be some. Go ahead.
The basis for this is that the Bank of Japan has not raised interest rates in 17 years. That doesn't change anything that you just said.
Except for the recent one.
Yes, until recently. And so people have been sitting here. It's the equivalent of when interest rates were low in the US, of people taking out debt to buy stocks, except much more complicated.
Yeah,
so you're doing
cross currencies.
Exactly. So you're doing a thing that is not smart to do in the first place and adding in complexity.
And anyone's who hypothesis is, I'm gonna take out debt to make free money. It's like, guys, it's never that simple. Anyway, we don't have to talk about that. I find it boring but kind of humorous too. So that's that. Now, if we could talk about the vice presidential candidates' finances, not the vice presidential candidates, because who cares? Although it's fascinating that one was a football coach. Like, that's his claim to fame.
Sorry. When you talk about vice presidents and coach, I just think about vice presidents and couch. Continue.
All right. So on the Democratic side, Tim Walz, I hope I'm saying that correctly, has finances like I have never seen in my lifetime for someone that is running to an office that is this high. Okay.
But we haven't seen, like, what does Bernie Sanders look like?
Actually, Bernie Sanders is kind of similar, but Bernie Sanders has been making a congressional paycheck
that's true.
for long enough that doesn't.
That's true.
So Tim Walz doesn't have a book deal. He doesn't have an endorsement deal. He doesn't have anything. He was in the reserves for like 20 plus years, and then he was a teacher for 20 plus years. It is estimated by parties that aren't me, I think this came from Bloomberg or Business Insider, that he is less wealthy than the average American.
I doubt that, but that is what it said.
It is estimated. He has a net worth between 112,000 and 330,000, according to his financial disclosure. He sold his house, and apologies for going into the details, but this is all relevant. He sold his house for less than 330,000 when he moved to the governor's mansion. He has no holdings of equities, bonds, no real investment stuff.
Keeping it smart?
Not necessarily.
No, not at all. That was a joke.
Okay, so there's two sides to this coin. One is just my general surprise that you could be in a position like this and live such a humble, it's not a bad thing, but such a humble financial life. It's just become really rare in America. Typically, people that run for these offices are very wealthy.
And here's where I like it might be aggressive, because I don't know enough about it to really say that. But where I think that it is an interesting contrast is that Kamala's life and finances would be so different. I think there's value in having differing perspectives, even economically, for folks. Not that making decisions in politics is as simple as like, what do you think? What do you think? Oh, where our backgrounds are different. Cool. We have a good decision. Like it's never like that clean. But I do think that's a perspective that a lot of, to your point, that a lot of folks won't have around like, what is it like when you don't own stocks or don't even understand? Like, I don't know what his financial literacy is. And so I think there's a blend, and it probably also has a little bit of a downside.
I yeah, I don't know what to think. There's this part of me that is really it almost finds it enchanting that so many politicians stand there and say like, I'm gonna support you, the middle class, and they are completely disconnected. Like when you look at
Yeah.
their financials, you have someone like Nancy Pelosi buying $1 million option on Nvidia or something, right? And that happens on both sides. He can actually be like, yeah, I shop at the same grocery store you. I own it. Like he appears to be living a very middle class life.
Yeah. I
Um,
shop at Berkshire Hathaway's Target just like you do.
but oh, we're biased on the show. It's hard for me to digest someone that doesn't own any equities. Is digest the right word?
It was a perfectly chosen word for this.
I'm not here to support like your crazy millionaires, but I'd like to call it financial literacy is maybe too harsh because maybe he just made that choice. Because who cares? He's coaching and he has a pension, right? Like he had no desire to run for vice president of the
Yeah.
U.S. I don't think, at least 10 years ago. But it's
And
very different.
it's in stark contrast to what was a couple weeks ago, I think, when we were exchanging texts about Vance's portfolio. And it's like, this portfolio is kind of stupid, but it's a portfolio. Like now I'm like, oh, but it is a portfolio. Like I didn't realize that no portfolio was an option.
Was an option. Yeah. Like you're supposed to be like, oh, they hold index funds. Great. That means they're not going to be bought by lobbyists A, B, or C, although they probably still are.
Yeah. Maybe you don't need equities when you have like dividends and cash flow just coming from other politicians.
Okay. So I don't have anything intelligent to say other than I'm shocked by it. If he is elected vice president, his pay will double. Often, again, when people take offices like this, they take massive pay cuts because
Yeah.
they are some of the wealthiest Americans. It's fascinating.
Yeah. That is it's a different take on the game, I say. And I'm down for a different take sometimes, at least to explore it. Can we talk about, I'm gonna switch, reach in the fishbowl to talk about the same take on a game, H100s. For those not familiar, the H100 is the Nvidia chip that is driving the world wild right now. The reason that you've seen Nvidia's revenue over the last couple of years just balloon like a harpoon with a spoon in June is because
You're about
the
to get
H100.
put on probation.
It's because of the H100. So this is the chip that's at the heart of the AI revolution right now in the last couple of years. What I find to be interesting, so that part's not interesting. What I do find to be interesting is I didn't realize how much of these chips, although you've mentioned something like this to me before, but I don't pay attention to what you say, how much of these chips is owned by just a few companies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you some stats that I saw on Sherwood. So Meta, of the 4 that it lists, I'm going to assume these are the top companies that own that have disclosed. So there are others, but we don't know. Meta, it's estimated about $7 to $14 billion worth of H100s. That's 250,000 H100s that Meta owns. They cost somewhere between like 30 to 40K each.
Mm-hmm.
XAI, which is our good friend, your good friend Elon Musk organization, $2 to $4 billion, about 100,000 of these. Tesla, so if you put those two together, I think it's interesting when you say like Elon is just buying a lot, but Tesla roughly 1.7 to 3.4 billion. And then A16Z, this is an interesting one. So A16Z is Andreessen Horowitz. It's a VC firm, a very large VC firm and well known. They have about 400 to 800 million dollars. The reason that I found that one to be interesting is because apparently what they're doing is they hoarded them, and then they are using them to get equity in other companies. So they're basically saying, you want to start an AI company? we have all these H100s that you can use. Give us a part
Yeah,
of your
no one else
organization.
has them. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty clever, actually.
It's clever. Yeah. So it goes back to maybe a month, sometime in the last couple months, we were talking about how Nvidia's revenue rise has some kind of a limit to it because there's a moment in time where you have a shortage of these chips that everybody in the club getting tipsy over. But because I dropped another one on you. But because there's such a shortage, like the price is so high, and the price will not remain that high for these chips. Even the H200 is around the corner somewhere. So
Yeah.
fascinating to me.
I mean, and you didn't even mention Google and Microsoft, who also
No.
have a ton of
Yeah.
these things. We've talked about this a lot. It's an incredible business at the moment because they found a way to have their customers be the world's best companies who have incredible profit margins and all sorts of cash, right? If they had
Yes.
targeted a different segment, if their customer was, I don't
Grocery
know,
stores.
GM and Ford, yeah, or Kroger and Safeway,
Yeah.
like they'd be like, we'd love to buy some of those, but we don't have $14 billion to spend. And these companies do. So I don't know how long it lasts, but it's fun to see.
Maybe let's take another different scenario for Berkshire. What if one day our good friend Warren woke up and just said, let's get over it already. I'm going to buy the lot of them, and just spent $277 billion on H100s and shut the whole market down.
We don't know the same Warren here. He's not doing that.
We don't.
He's not doing that. He's not
he
doing
would
that.
he would wake up and call someone and go, I had this dream and H100 kept popping up. Does that mean anything to you? No? Is
Oh,
that a ticker?
he knows the ins and outs of the business. I mean, okay, so going back to where you started the show, all these other, I don't know, like Alphabet's market cap is going on $1 trillion, right? He certainly can't buy Microsoft or 10% of it. He can't buy Nvidia. Could he get a significant stake in Google?
Alphabet is 2 trillion.
Yeah, it's 2 trillion now.
2 trillion. Yep.
Okay. Nope,
So,
he's going to be stuck with Target and 3M.
yeah. He's going to be stuck down in the dregs with those folks.
Maybe
Something
he'll buy
else.
DuckDuckGo.
He doesn't know what that is. Something else that I just had to laugh at in here because it's so Elon was there's this story in this piece where Elon, I didn't know this, but apparently Tesla bought some H100s and then he gave them to his other XAI, his other company, and Tesla shareholders were like, you can't do that. Like, you spent our cash. And his rationale on the earnings call was, yes, Tesla bought them. We didn't have space in our data centers. So what am I going to do? Like, that's still not a good enough reason to spend your shareholders' money and then give it to yourself.
I mean,
basically,
you could sell them at fair market value to another company.
he sold them
for it properly.
He sold them at 0 times fair market value to another company.
All right. Since this show is officially off the rails, let's continue with the fun. I love college sports. Everyone knows that. Big news this week. Big news. Florida International University, known as FIU,
yes,
sold their stadium naming rights to Pitbull. Pitbull is the official entrepreneur of Florida International University for $1.2 million per year.
I don't know that I knew that a person could do that. I mean, it makes sense. I don't see why not, but I just had never really thought about that.
Oh, funny you should mention that. Let's dive into the contract. Here are the nitty-gritty details. He has the right to use the stadium for 10 days annually, and he gets a limited number of seats to at a discounted rate for all FIU events. Apparently he's local. I don't know much about Pitbull.
Miami.
His vodka, which is called Foley 305, is now the official preferred brand of the stadium and the stadium club. He has the ability to have affiliated performers perform at halftime or at postgame. He gets 2 football suites, VIP parking. So 40 person capacity and 20 VIP parking passes. He is also creating the FIU anthem. So he's like making music for this. These are some of my favorites. He has to create 12 social media posts per year in the agreement's term
One
to
a month.
promote the brand. Yes. And he has to appear at one athletic fundraising event.
This seems like a pretty good deal for him.
1.2 million. I mean, he's still paying.
He is. However, he is. I know he's Mr. Worldwide, but he is Mr. Miami.
Mhm.
Now you have your name just all over this city that you call home. I don't know what I'm curious. I don't know what the fact that he can get the stadium for 10 days free. I'm not sure what the costs of that would be for him throwing concerts, but that seems like it might be a pretty good deal. If he gets the sales from the vodka, so he has to do work to make it a good deal. It's not an automatic good deal, but it could be.
All right, I learned a few things. One, I thought Florida International University was more in Central Florida. It is in Miami, so that's
Yeah.
handy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to do some rough math on just the price of those tickets. Now, this is not Georgia or Alabama or whatever, but it's a decent value in the tickets alone, and then the stadium use. He might just be signing up for roughly fair market value to buy this thing. He basically got the timeshare deal of stadium naming rights sponsorships.
Yeah, he did. He did. If you view those as marketing costs,
Is he gonna sell more albums because of this?
this is if you go to the yen carry trade, this people don't know what to do with their money right now.
No, the yen carry trade's different. That's because people don't have money.
Oh, okay. Yes, that is true.
If Pitbull is borrowing whatever this would be, like 15 billion yen per year for this sponsorship, I have some concerns.
What if this was all connected? Oh my goodness gracious. What a scandal. What a scandal.
Hold on, I'm efforting the total cost of those tickets. All right, let's just say I can't find tickets to his specific boxes or adjacent ones, but there are lots of tickets available for the game in a month starting at $10. I don't think the value of these tickets is $1.2 million. So I'd say we figured that one out. Lots and lots of availability.
Not anymore. Not after this.
Really?
I don't know. I've already bought my flights.
Oh, good. So, well, now that I know it's in Miami, I'm in better shape. I might actually be able to get to the stadium.
Yeah, so
All
now
right,
when you go down
Joe.
for the Bitcoin conference, you can just hop over.
You got jokes today. You
I do.
really,
I really
got
do.
jokes. Okay, here we go. Hit skippydoogles.com for all things Skippy Doogles. You mentioned it earlier, Doogles. I have made some stock purchases recently with my model. We need to talk about that sometime soon. If you want to hear conversations like that, you can get premium episodes where we did a deep dive on other things like that. If you go to skippydoogles.supercast.com, you also get the show a day early, and you can support the show if you just like the banter. Listener mail is skippydoogles@gmail.com. What I miss?
That's it. Thank you, everybody.